Hey, what's going on, APUSH peeps? We have video number 14 for you, state constitutions and the Articles of Confederation after the American Revolution. The Articles of Confederation is a very important topic that you should be familiar with and would make for a great compare and contrast short answer or essay with the Constitution. Before we begin, it's shout out time to Mr. Profits class in San Francisco. Thanks for watching. I appreciate the support. Best of luck. You will do awesome this year. Okay, let's talk about new state constitutions. Well, many constitutions place property qualifications for voting and citizenship. This is a foreign concept from today, but back in the 1700s and early 1800s, a lot of states had property requirements for voting, so that limited the amount of people that could vote. There was this fear of the masses, and most property qualifications would be eliminated in the 1820s and 1830s during Andrew Jackson's presidency. We'll get to him in period 4. He's a super interesting dude. State governments were set up so that the most powerful branch was the legislative. So again, this fear of an executive, like a monarch, like King George III, and they were elected by the voters. And again, I can't stress enough during this time, there's such a fear of the British monarch that state governments and even the federal government are designed to have a very weak executive branch. So the Articles of Confederation, I want you to think one word, and that word is weak. It is a very weak central government because of King George III and monarchies. So the Articles were purposely designed this way, and you need to understand why. Well, there's a fear of a strong central government like Britain. I've said that about 20 times already. I hope that's getting through. And the Articles were weak in the following ways. There was no executive branch, so there was not a president under the Articles of Confederation. There also was a unicameral legislature with one vote per state. Unicameral means a one-house legislature. So each state had one vote that was equal. So it didn't matter whether the state was super small like Rhode Island or had a lot of people like Virginia, for example. And state legislatures had incredible power. So the legislators were the ones who had all the power because they were elected by the people. So what were some issues under the Articles of Confederation? Well, with international trade, Britain refused commercial treaties with the U.S. They were mad that the U.S. declared independence, so they're going to refuse to trade with the U.S. Also, Spain is going to cut off access to the Mississippi River, especially down in New Orleans. And this is going to be huge because the Mississippi River was a super highway during the 1700s for trade. So the U.S. is going to lose out on a lot of trade with access to the Mississippi being cut off. Financial issues included the federal government could not tax, so they had very little source of revenue. Basically, selling land was their source of revenue. They could ask states for tax money, but states could just refuse to pay it. So the federal government did not have a lot of income. That's a problem when they need to spend money. Each state could coin its own money, and this led to differing values, inflation in some states. So New York would have its own currency, Pennsylvania would. Think about if you're traveling among the states during this time, how difficult it would be to constantly exchange currency and the fluctuating values. That's going to discourage trade and will lead to many difficulties with trade. Jumping over to interstate commerce, this is trade between states. Each state could place tariffs on goods from other states, so that would further discourage trade. And the federal government had no control over interstate trade, so they had no say in what states were doing when trading with each other. Under the Constitution, the federal government does have control over interstate trade. Interstate trade is trade between two or more states. We'll talk a lot more about this in period 4. It's a very important concept to understand. Foreign relations, there was a weak government, could not force Britain to leave posts after the Revolutionary War. So a lot of forts in, say, the Northwest Territory, Britain was still in, and they refused to vacate those forts as they were supposed to with the Treaty of Paris of 1783. And the government was so weak they couldn't force Britain to do so. It's not really until after the War of 1812 that Britain does leave. There's internal unrest under the Articles of Confederation. I want you to understand Shays' Rebellion. This is super important. Daniel Shays was a former Revolutionary War soldier, and he was protesting economic issues in the 1780s in Massachusetts, particularly high state taxes and foreclosures on farms. Farms were being taken away from farmers. So he led this group of mostly farmers to protest these foreclosures and high state taxes. And the rebellion is going to last months. And here's actually the final place. See this stone? It's the final place of the rebellion. This lasted several months because there was no national military to stop it. Pretty much state militias were the only ones that were able to do anything. So Daniel Shays is going to scare a lot of people and encourage people to want a stronger central government, which we'll talk about in the next video. So all of these issues combined, especially Daniel Shays, will lead to many Americans wanting to revise the Articles of Confederation, but they're very difficult to revise, as we'll see in the next video. Now, we've talked a lot of negatives about the Articles, but there is a positive you should be familiar with. And this area in gray here is known as the Northwest Territory. So all these states in gray made up the Northwest Territory. The Northwest Land Ordinance of 1787 applies to that area. What this does is the nation could admit new states once a population of 60,000 was reached. So if people start moving into Ohio and Ohio hits that magic number of 60,000, they could apply to be a state. And this is something that's going to continue in American history after the Articles of Confederation, this precedent for admitting states. This guaranteed freedom of religion and trial by jury, the Northwest Land Ordinance did. So you may ask yourself, what's the big deal? That's what's in the Bill of Rights. Aha! This was prior to the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights don't come around for another couple years. So this is prior to the Bill of Rights. We see rights are guaranteed for individuals living in the Northwest Territory. Proceeds from the 16th square mile of 36 square miles went towards education. So towns would be divided into 36 square miles, 6 by 6. The 16th square mile of that 36, the proceeds from that land would go towards education. So we see the importance of education during this time. Perhaps most significantly, the Northwest Land Ordinance of 1787 abolished slavery. So slavery was illegal in this territory. So these states never really knew slavery because it was illegal. And we also had the protection of private property, which is going to be a huge theme in early American history. All right, we'll end with a quick recap. Voting under state constitutions. How was it? Who was it limited to? Issues under articles, be able to explain issues of trade, finance, and foreign relations, and especially internal unrest. Think Daniel Shays. And of course, know the major positive, the Northwest Land Ordinance of 1787. Thank you guys very much for watching. Look forward to seeing you back here for video 15. Constitutional Convention, compromises, and the Federalist Papers. We got a lot going on in that video. It'll be another good one. Best of luck. Thanks for watching, and have a good day.